Welcome to another episode of Chat Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive on sports. Welcome to my NFL Week 6 recap video. We get to go over my how I did on my picks from last week and kind of provide some highlights of some of the NFL action. And there were quite a few surprises over the week. But before we dive into all of this, let's go ahead and smash that thumbs up, especially like the content provider. Really please you two guys. We help the channel out. So subscribe. Let you guys review my work. Not many of you subscribe. It doesn't cost you a dime. Helps me provide more content value for you. Let's go ahead and go back to last Thursday for another barn burner on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. I don't know if the NFL did this on purpose to Amazon when they got that contract, but these past few games we've had on there have been meh. It's just been terrible. It took, I think, 6 quarters before they finally had a touchdown in this game between Washington and Chicago. Now, I went with Chicago, as you might see why behind me. And I thought these two teams were pretty much similar in the way they played. Yeah. Both these offenses are just bad. Period. Dot. They're not performing what they should be performing. Carson Wentz has yet to return to his form he was prior to his injuries in Philadelphia. His offensive line's not helping out a lot. I think they've went through, there's like their 6th iteration. I think they finally found something that actually kept them upright the majority of the game. Justin Fields, they still don't know how to use this guy properly. They've had glimpses, but the receiver's not making a catch. There was a game plan of running on the outside, which was working very well, but he kept going away for it to go back in the middle. So I don't know, the offensive coordinator needs to look at the film and go, okay, what was working and why didn't we continue to do that? And that's what the head coaches have to do, is like, why did we go away from running from the outside? They weren't stopping it. Once they stop stopping the outside, then you start running the inside and really get the defense, trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to stop this? But they didn't do that. It was such a sloppy game. And it wasn't until the 3rd quarter that Chicago actually pulled off this amazing drive. And Justin Fields actually connected with a touchdown. But beyond that, it was just bad. Bad. If it wasn't for I think, muff punt in the 4th quarter, that could have been a Chicago victory at 7-3. Or even 7-6. Just a really bad baseball game. This is how bad it was. Like I said, muff punt in the 4th quarter. Washington was able to score on Brian Robinson's run. 2-point conversion failed. Chicago drive in the 4th, and his receiver could not come up with the catch at the goal line. And I think by the time he caught that, he was already out of bounds. That was it. Washington held on, beat Chicago 12-7. And come to find out, Carson Wentz actually was injured, and you can tell if you're watching the game, he kept shaking his hand. And trust me, I've been in that position before, the finger, because I still have a hairline fracture in this one. I haven't quite healed up correctly. But he kept shaking his hand throughout that game, trying to keep it warm, and he was still able to make throws. So kudos to Carson Wentz to hanging in there. But yeah, there's a lot of work that has to be done in Chicago, because that game was just an embarrassment. Then we head to the Sunday action, where there were a lot of surprises. Some I've called, some I didn't. Let's go ahead and start off in Hotlanta, where the 49ers came to town. Then the 49ers came in banged up and busted, so they were missing some key pieces. I went with the Hotlanta in this one. They brought out their throwback red helmets, and Marcus Mariota threw for 3 touchdowns. They were just too much for San Francisco. San Francisco had a great 2nd quarter where they got within striking distance. It was 21-14.5. But after that, it was just the Atlanta defense shutting down Jimmy G and the 49ers, which we've seen that happen before. When the defense steps up some plays, San Francisco crumbles. They saw that in Denver not too long ago. They did the same thing in Atlanta. Atlanta holds on to win 28-14. Then we head to Cleveland, where the Patriots came to town. Third stringer, Zappe is the starter still. And I figure there's enough. With him being a third string, I didn't think too much of it. I didn't give the Patriots enough credit for the running attack and for the defense. Cleveland just could not handle what Zappe was doing. Zappe had over 300 yards passing against Cleveland. I didn't think he had that. Balanced nicely with Stevenson running the ball. I mean, he ain't running for 2 touchdowns. He wasn't explosive, but he was enough of a bruising effect that kind of made Cleveland defense kind of, okay, that's kind of coming on the run, and Zappe just lit him up in the air. Maybe have a little quarterback controversy up there in New England because New England manhandled Cleveland 38-15. I don't think anyone saw that one coming that way. At least I didn't. That's why I went with Cleveland. But that was just a surprising effort. Then the Jets head to Lambeau. And Green Bay was looking to try to rebound from their loss against the Giants in London. And they didn't want to go 2-0, or 0-2 against New York teams. Now I knew the Jets were going to give them problems because Green Bay has shown they're not as dominant as they were in the past. Yes, they still have Aaron Rodgers, who is a bad man in the backfield. Who's he throwing it to? They're not concentrating on the run. They're trying to concentrate on Aaron Rodgers doing everything. It's just Green Bay has become one-dimensional. And if you can stifle the receivers who have proven they're not as reliable as what he used to have back there with Davante Adams, because Lazard was then his best number 2. Lazard's moved to number 1. Hasn't really stepped up to the plate. Cobb is now shelved. I mean, it's just a bad all around, and that just Green Bay has yet to really find ways to make it work. The Jets defense was in there a lot in Green Bay, forcing a lot of bad throws, sacking Aaron Rodgers, who almost had 250 yards passing still. But the Jets defense was a bend, don't break philosophy. Special teams came up big plays as well with a block punt and running back for a touchdown. Jets were firing on all 3 aspects of the game. Winning the Lambeau, beat the Packers 27-10. I did pick Green Bay. I was not surprised the Jets won. Then we head to Indianapolis, where the Colts were playing host to the Jaguars, looking for revenge from their fiasco down in Jacksonville a couple weeks back, which I called. And they're looking for a little revenge. And this one actually went back and forth. I mean, it was a steady game by both teams. Matt Ryan had a phenomenal game. 389 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence wasn't that bad either. Entame was just running amok for Jacksonville. Indianapolis, once again, not really having much of a running attack because of injuries, and the backfield kind of helped dictate the course of this action. But Indianapolis is showing signs that they're going the right direction. They did that last week against Denver. They won. It wasn't Purdy. It definitely wasn't Purdy. But they ended up winning. And same thing here. It was just a late fourth quarter touchdown to Pierce from Matt Ryan. Helped seal the deal. And Indianapolis got their revenge. Beat Jacksonville 34-27. We head down to Miami, where the Dolphins playing host to the Vikings. And Tua was not starting this week. Bridgewater was the starter. I was going to pick the Vikings anyways, no matter who was starting quarterback. The Vikings right now are just a fascinating team with their 3-headed monster on the offense. The defense is doing just enough to stifle teams. And Miami's just one of these teams that just their defenses have seemed to fall back a little bit because they seem to rely more on Tua doing his thing, especially when you have, a dynamic receiver in Tyreek Hill. I mean, that kind of makes things a little easier for you. I mean, Hill still had 177 yards in the receiving. Couldn't find the end zone. Minnesota was too much for Miami. Held off a flurry of points in the fourth and beat Miami 24-16. Then we head down to the Big Easy where Joe Burrow returned back to the state of Louisiana. Remember, he was a quarterback at LSU that led him to a national championship. When he's taken, the Saints are hosting the Bengals. And this one, the Saints were actually doing quite well. Andy Dalton, the old Bengals starter, after made a few trips in other locations, is now found himself as the starting quarterback right now for New Orleans. Alvin Kamara is starting to play up to his standard almost, being a dynamic force to really contend with. And Burrow and Chase are starting to connect once again, create this dynamic between them. 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, really kind of helps that. And Cincinnati had to come from behind on this one. New Orleans led most of this game, and it's just Cincinnati had to come from behind. But, the stall of the offense in the fourth quarter led to the Bengals beating the Saints 30-26. To New York, where the Giants playing host to the Ravens. And this game, I picked the Giants to begin with. There's just something about Baltimore that I don't think makes them that scary. Now, they do have Lamar Jackson, and he is a phenomenal athlete. He is definitely a force multiplier because he can throw it, he can run it. And he's just one of these players that you're going to have to put half your defense on just to nullify anything else. But that's also the problem. Baltimore's become one-dimensional. They don't really have any help for him on the receiving core. I mean, he does have a tight end he really likes to pass to, Andrews, which evidently had over 100 yards and a touchdown. But he has no other running back there to help him out. His offensive line is starting to kind of crumble. The defense gives up. And it was a great stat that Get Up had this morning before I recorded this video. Is the first 3 quarters, Baltimore's phenomenal. It's that fourth quarter, that team just collapses. You saw that against Miami. You saw it again here with the Giants. They were beating the Giants, and they allowed them to come back. Lamar made a bad decision. It was a bad snap, so he ended up running around instead of throwing it away. He threw it. He may not see it. He saw the guy. He thought he was open. Maybe he didn't see the defender that came in and made the interception that led to a go-ahead touchdown. You've had Lamar then fumbling it, which ended up honestly in the game for him. I mean, Barkley could have ran in at the very end of the game and did not. He stopped at the 2-yard line and just gave himself up. Did not go in, did not score, did not give the opportunity for Baltimore to come back out there and have Lamar Jackson just do the Superman routine. And the Giants ended up beating Baltimore 24-20. In a game I think a lot of people didn't see coming, except this guy. Do we head over to Steeler Nation, where the Steelers are playing host to the Buccaneers. And I put the Steelers in the ground saying, all right, this is it. This is the rebuild year. Let's see what Kenny Pickett can do and to build around him. The Steelers have different ideas. Something about Tampa Bay right now is just not gelling. Now, it came to light that Brady last Friday went to Kraft's wedding, his former employer with the Patriots. So he never went through like a walkthrough or last team meeting and whatnot. And then when he started playing, they were not on the same page. Tom Brady and the rest of the team were not on the same page. Tom Brady had no time to really make any type of passes. And you already know that Tom Brady gets, two people in his face. He is out of his game. Period. Dot. He gets frustrated with that. He takes it out on anything and anyone, Surface pros, linemen. So you saw that he actually chewed out his lineman. His lineman looked at him like, "All right, diva." But they were still made a comeback. It was they were Buccaneers knocked out Kenny Pickett, so Trubisky came back in. Trubisky's playing like his life depended on it. He's actually being a quarterback. And Tampa Bay just couldn't really make any touchdowns to the very, very end, where Tom Brady was actually finally able to throw in for a touchdown. Made it 20-18. That means he had to go over 2-point conversion. Brady tried to pass it to Fournette. He got batted away. 2-point try, no good. Pittsburgh hangs on to upset Tampa Bay 20-18. And I think the most surprised game of this weekend. Then we head to LA, where the Rams playing host to the Panthers, and the Panthers jumped out kind of early on them, leading 10-7.5, which kind of let me rethink this one, because I thought, okay, this is going to be the Rams all day long. There's no way the Panthers will be able to do this. New head coach. Now P.J. Walker is their starter, and this is the guy who's also won a NFL contract after his XFL season with the Houston Roughnecks. And he showed, promise there, so he's able to get a gig in the NFL, and he was doing decent stuff. McCaffrey, once again, not being utilized properly, only had 69 yards on the ground. Now it's rumored that, Carolina is listening to offers. They've already rejected 2 trade requests already. So I think they're asking a pretty high price for a guy who can't stay healthy, it seems like. But I think they're looking for more of a return on the high draft they did on him, and looking for the same type of return. But looking at this one, it was Stafford was just being Stafford, kind of middle of the road. Over 250 yards passing, a touchdown. It was enough for the Rams, as they were able to steadily outpace Carolina 24-10 from the 500 in the season. Then we have to the Pacific Northwest, where the Seahawks are playing host to the Cardinals. This is the one I went with Seahawks because they were at home, and a lot of my picks were because they were the home team. This week was very hard to really kind of pinpoint who was going to go with. A lot of them just because who was playing at home. This is the same case. And with Kyler Murray, he tried his best to carry the team. He had over 200 yards passing. He had 100 yards rushing. No touchdowns, interception. It was just nothing they could really do. It was just Seattle was just doing enough of the small things to make the right plays at the right time. Even though I think Arizona had the better offensive numbers, they couldn't put touchdowns up. They only could get field goals, which is credit to the Seattle defense. And Seattle offense was just doing just enough to win the game. And once again, ugly game, but Seattle ends up winning 19-9. A huge game in Kansas City where the Bills came to town. This is for the dominance of the AFC. Who's going to be the new kings of the conference? Was it Buffalo? Was it Kansas City? We all remember last season's divisional round between them, with Kansas City and winning overtime. But Buffalo ended up beating Kansas City in the regular season. So could it be like a repeat performance this year? Who knows? But this is an epic game between the two. Both defenses were on point. The offenses were just had to get creative in trying to find ways in making things work. Mahomes being Mahomes, had over 300 passing, 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen being Josh Allen. hurdling defenders and making runs. Stephon Diggs just being Stephon Diggs, almost 150 yards receiving with a touchdown. I mean, the stars showed up. Von Miller was the difference maker for the Buffalo defense as he got to Patrick Mahomes a couple times. And that's what Buffalo brought Von Miller in. I think they think Von Miller is that missing key to get Buffalo to that next level. And that next level, as I stated in my preseason video, is a Super Bowl. And Buffalo did just enough. They flustered. They even had Mahomes throw a late interception that iced the game. Buffalo beats Kansas City 24-20 to become the number one team in the AFC. And quite frankly, probably the number one team in the league, regardless of what happens in Philadelphia, because they look just that damn good. Speaking of, they walked in Dallas Cowboys and see if they can stop the Cooper Rush rush of wins. He's right now won 4 in a row. And Philly made him look like a backup quarterback. They burst that bubble on Cooper Rush. The Philly defense was just way too much to handle for Cooper Rush. He threw 3 interceptions that game. He has thrown none, but he had thrown 3 that game. The Phillies offense had a great game plan against Micah Parsons. Don't block him and kind of play away from him, which in essence shouldn't really work. Leaving a playmaker like Micah Parsons unblocked and let him just run amok should spell doom for you. But the way they handled him was phenomenal, because it was just Jalen Hurts was able to look him straight in the eyes and just take him out of the game plan. Jalen Hurts has shown that he should probably be in the conversation for MVP. Now, he's probably on the outside looking into that conversation, because I think Josh Allen right now is putting himself number one with a bullet. Micah Parsons probably got himself taken out of that conversation a little bit. But Jalen Hurts did everything he had to do correctly. Even though Dallas started coming back in the second half, it was like that halftime they got beat. And that's the thing with Philadelphia. They jump out to an early lead, and that's what they maintain. They don't try to get too creative, go overblown, it seems like. Either that or defenses readjust and figure out how to stop Jalen Hurts. But Dallas was just one of these teams that just wouldn't go away. They kept inching away. Cooper Rush threw a third touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott found pay dirt. But Philadelphia just enough, led by the 3 interceptions of Cooper Rush, beat Dallas 26-17, become and still undefeated. The only undefeated team right now in the NFL. They're going to bye. They're going to enjoy this. I think it's like the 3rd time ever they've ever done that. I think the other 2 times they've done, they went to the Super Bowl. I think that's a bit much there, but that was a phenomenal game. And Dallas fans could be, all right, Cooper Rush did what he's supposed to do. He went 4-1 as a starter, which is more than what I think anyone really expected him to do. But it just shows that there's ways to kind of combat that defense. And that offense is still powerful enough. If Dak was playing, it could have been a different game plan, but it's not. Philly is the number one team right now in the NFC. Many will say the number one team in the NFL. And that leads us to Monday night. And Monday night, oh boy. This one was not very exciting. Now it's Denver, the Broncos and the Chargers. Normally a divisional game like this will kind of be pretty good, especially when you have quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert. 2 phenomenal quarterbacks, one that in his prime is one of the best in the league, and then Justin Herbert is now the batch of the young bloods that should be taking over the face of the league, and Russell Wilson has not been playing up to the hype. He's been bad. The defense for Denver has been spectacular. They have done their part. They have kept the team in games when they had to. They have not really coughed up a ton of points. They made the games winnable for the offense, and the offense has the talent to do that. However, they don't seem to do that. Now, the first quarter was brilliant for Denver. This is what the fans of the Broncos expected. This is what the ownership of the Broncos expected. This is what the executive of the Broncos expected, was to see this type of offense that happened in against the Chargers in that first quarter. That's all they got was a quarter. Not the whole game, just a quarter. After, like I said, it was 10-0 after the first quarter. They were 13-10 at half. They were doing just enough. It was, I don't know, bad play all around. Khalil Mack was actually making sacks once again. His name in the sack books haven't been said. That's in his first year in Chicago. Seems like he gets a new home and he revitalizes himself. So we'll see how he is next year. But yeah, it was just a bad performance all around. The defense has stepped in. The star of this week is the Chargers kicker, Dustin Hopkins, who I think either pulled a hammy or something, He tweaked something in his leg. He wasn't 100%, but he was still kicking field goals. And you can tell, it was after the extra point. He said he heard a pop, which is not a good sign, which probably is a hamstring. But he kept kicking field goals. All of his field goals were in the 30-yard range. I think his furthest was like 37, 39, something like that. But every time he kicked those field goals, he'll go down to a knee after he kick it and make it. He was in excruciating pain when doing that, but he stayed out there to do it. It was just a sight to behold. And this game was just bad. Chargers had possession at the end of the game. They thought about trying to make a play, and they got stopped. And they kind of went, okay, we'll kind of wait till like 1 second and we'll throw like a Hail Mary and see what happens. Justin Herbert, you can tell he wasn't 100% either. But he's out there trying to, make some deep throws. The defenses stepped up in the overtime. They're like, great, another overtime game. And I was going, great, now I'm going to stay up to watch a tie. But once again, a muff punt, which was kind of interesting because the blocker was kind of pushed into the receiver, which is still kind of legal because they were both, the blocker and the Charger were both, block each other. Charger just had a little bit better leverage, able to push him back into the receiver. They ended up touching the ball, muffed it. Chargers recovered, set up a game-winning field goal. Hopkins hit it. He was on the ground. He had to be kind of, lifted up the ground. And, still standing at the end of the game, making an interview, but the Chargers ended up winning overtime, 19-16. We go 4-2 in the season, and put a lot of question marks in Denver right now. Because I had higher hopes for them, so did a lot of other people, and they're not living up to the hype yet. But there you go. There's the recap. And I'm going, like I said, 9-5. Of course, I lost the Chicago game, Cleveland, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. Those are all games that I had lost. But hey, you can't win them all. And the fact that I went 9-5, which is kind of, right on par with most of my season, since it's the start of the bye season for the NFL. But hey, just let me know down below which game surprised you the most. Which game did you really enjoy? What are you looking forward to next week in some of these key matchups? Just let me know down in the comments below. Once you're down there, make sure you hit that thumbs up once again. You can also share this video with friends or family. It helps promote this video out. Once you subscribe, make sure you click that bell. That lets you know the next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.